us.
Still the best intro in the world, that, guys. Still the best intro.
Love that.
There we go. There we go. Hello and welcome to the Match Report, hosted, of course, by Frame of Phil, Kojo, Cahill. Darren joins us again for, I don't know. It's always great when we're all together, Darren. It's always great.
Yeah.
You take some time off. You take a lot of time off. I must admit.
I take a lot of time off. It's like I'm an employee. It's good to chat football with you guys.
Exactly. And we are joined by Steve, of course. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Everything's going well at the moment, and my team keeps winning games of football, albeit by the skin of their teeth a little bit the last couple of games. But that's never a bad thing when teams show you resilience and you come through it. So on and off the pitch, mate, all very good.
Excellent. Let's get into it, man. There's the match day of the penalties. That's what we should call the pod anyway. I don't know what it's called. What is it called, Kojo?
It's called Who Wants Penalty?
There we go. So at least the penalty was there, man. Penalties for you, penalties for me, penalties for everybody, man. Let's start with Manchester City. They obviously scored their penalty, 1-0. Raheem Sterling tucks it away. Probably the most controversial penalty out of the lot. Darren's shaking his head saying it's not. Steve, before the podcast,
no, it is.
It is controversial.
It is controversial because it's not a penalty.
Yeah, there we go.
I've got, as you know, I'm based up there now, and there are people I know that support City that were like, that was no way a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So that basically lets you know that they know that they've got away with one there.
Let's get into it, man. Like, we talk about VAR like it's this amazing piece of technology, which it is, of course, but it's all about the people behind it. How, Kojo, are the referees once again messing this up?
Boy, listen. At this point, we've been talking about from the days of Uri Rennie. What was his name?
That's the man, yeah.
Yeah, Uri Rennie to your Clattenburgs every now and then. All these other guys. When we brought technology in to football, we were all sort of excited because we were thinking that it could be a lot. Well, we were hoping that it would be a lot more accurate. The decisions would be a lot more clearer. And I can tell you right now, I've got a whole list of decisions off the top of my head. I'm just like, in every league, in every country, is one thing after the other. I've seen Casemiro kick his own leg and get a penalty, and this weekend I've seen the ball hit someone's rib. Obviously, it's gone up and hit his arm as well, but it's nothing you can do about that. It's hit his rib first. It's not a penalty, but they've given it anyway. And the funny thing is, men behind the camera were watching it as well, and the referee didn't want to go and see it. But I feel like if the referee went to go and see it, he still would have given a penalty anyway. At this point, it's just same old. The quality doesn't get better with referees, and we said this when VAR came in. It's all great and it's all good and well having video evidence in front of you to help you make a better decision, but if you don't use it to make the better decision, you're still being the same referee from before. Nothing's changed with the referee game. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that years on, more going as well. It's the same thing over and over. And that continues as well. You'll hear ideas of, like, I think it's in Australia, they did it where you could hear the referee, similar to rugby.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think anyone's going to be happy with that because we're going to have the same nonsense again. There's going to be another controversial decision. You're going to hear the referee give his reason, but you're not going to like it. So, right now, was I surprised that City got the penalty? No. But, it's a shame for Wolves because Wolves played well in that game. They played well. They defended very well as well. And they all feel gutted that they came away with nothing. They should have at least a point in that game. So, yeah.
Can I say something controversial?
Please do.
I think when it comes to refereeing, I think there might be an issue with burnout at the top level of the Premier League. Because the way I see it, you're seeing the same referees referee the same games every single season. And if they're lucky enough in their career, because it is a positive to referee a major tournament, then they're refereeing well into the summer, couple of weeks break, then they're back at it again. And maybe because there isn't that sort of pathway to be a top level referee, or at least it isn't clear. I can't remember many new referees in the last 5-10 years. Maybe we're getting referees making tired decisions. Again, the technology is an aid, but if the people, because it's still hard, you still got to pay attention at Stockley Park as much as you're doing at the game. Do you know what I mean? So if you're at Stockley Park and you're mentally worn out, and you're at the game, assisting a referee is also mentally worn out, these decisions are going to happen. I don't see a way where we don't almost weekly talk about the referee unless there is a real sort of rotation amongst the top referees. There is a understanding that we give the referees as much support as we can, because I think it goes past there being something wrong with the referees just being rubbish. I mean, there was no English referees in the last two major international tournaments. That means there's something fundamentally wrong with the way that refereeing is handled in England. I think it would be a bit unfair to just blame that all on Mike Oliver or whoever else. Do you know what I mean? I think there's something deeper that needs to be handled properly.
Can I ask a question then to you guys? Because I've never really understood it. So I know there's sort of like I don't know if it's a tier system of, if you're making a certain level of good decisions or whatever, then you referee in the Premier League, and if not, you're demoted to the Championship or whatever. How does that work? Because the rotation thing is I think it's very fair. I mean, you still got loads of referees within the game, some that don't get to referee most weekends anyway. Is there a way to now maybe say, okay, you know what? I mean, Mac Oliver probably will be the top one of referees that they would have right now, but is there a way to maybe say, okay, this guy from the Championships had a great 4 or 5 games, maybe let's bring him into the Premier League and give this guy a rest? I don't know how it works, because what is the system?
So in the lower echelons of the pyramid, at the end of each game, each team scores the referee out of 10 for his performance.
Right.
Well, if it's a 6 or a 5 or a 4, because you get that, then that referee comes under a little bit of scrutiny. If it's a 7, 8 or a 9, then obviously that referee gets some praise for that. The higher up you go, there's a governing body that sits in above them all, and they review their performances. So if you have 3 months in Division 2, or 3 weeks in Division 2, where you had really good performances, and you start to make a bit of a name for yourself, then they'll push you up the rung a little bit. The problem you've got is refereeing's become so subjective in terms of that's right and that's wrong, and it leads to Darren's point before. You kind of feel like you're getting somewhere, and then you have what everyone else deems to be a shocker, and the score comes back as a 4, and then it gets reviewed, and they say, "Do you know what, Darren? We were going to stick you in Division 1 next week, but you had a bit of a mare there, son, so you have to stay where you are." And I think that is indicative of the whole problem. There's a lack of consistency. There's a lack of. I don't care if they have images on the wall showing where you can hit a ball on somebody. As I said before we came on air, the Manchester City penalty is difficult for me to comment on, because Moussa Sissoko did exactly the same thing a minute into a Champions League final, and we got a penalty. Yeah. But that was the mandate at that time. That was deemed part of a handball. So, as annoyed as Spurs fans were, that decision factually was correct based on the mandate the referee and the VAR had. So why not take a leaf out of rugby league's books, where the referee will say, on the pitch, I'm giving a penalty, can you check the handball, please? And make that audible so we can hear him having that conversation. It won't take very long for somebody to have a look at that and go, actually, it's come off his body, it's hit his arms. Okay, his arms are like that, but he's trying to make himself contradicting himself. He's trying to make himself difficult to get the ball around. Were those arms in an unnatural position? I'm not so sure they were. So it's about consistency. It's about having an objective, a set of rules that can be referred to instantly. And if, like Darren says, the guy's tired, mentally tired, because physical and mental fatigue run side by side, and he's making some decisions, every contentious issue where a whole bunch of players go, handball, needs to go upstairs and be checked. And it needs to be checked by somebody who's on the money, knows what the rules are, can make a reference to the mandate at that time for handball and make a decision, because that could be the difference. That penalty there can be the difference between winning the league and not winning the league.
It's one of those things, though. I understand your points, and I do agree that the tier system in place is probably flawed. But it's not like those referees at Stockley Park have a time limit on the amount on how long they have to make the decision. We've seen in previous seasons where it's like it seems like they've taken 5 to 7 minutes to make one decision. So I understand that the argument for mental fatigue and physical fatigue, but when you're sat on a at a desk with multiple camera angles, looking when you can zoom in to, to a millimeter of where the ball is touching the opposition player, you can't be making those mistakes, especially at the top level. I'm sorry.
So,
Can I
playing
challenge that?
can I just play devil's advocate just for a second?
Go on.
How long did it take you, KL, to say that's not handball under the current regime? How long did it take you to once you saw that to make that decision?
About 5 seconds.
So that those guys, with all due respect, are supposed to be more educated than you. It doesn't take 5 minutes to rule that out, does it? So that one's really black and white in terms of the lack of consistency. Because someone else will do that next week, and it won't be a penalty.
Mm.
Can I also say, like, the issue with the ability to zoom in on things and stuff, it changes the perspective of the potential foul. So it's like when you watch a bad challenge in slow mo, it looks 10 times worse in real time. Our natural body movement can seem a lot more natural if you're slowing it down, and I think that's one of those things, and that's the issue with the VAR in that sense, is that the replays can sort of add to the discourse as well. Not only in the sense of, oh, after looking at it at minus 0.5 speed really slowly, it looks like a penalty, but also every time VAR does something, well, say VAR, the people that's luckily part do something for VAR, then it's uber scrutinized. As soon as a decision goes to VAR, the commentators talking about VAR, talking about how long it takes to sort something out of VAR. So whilst there might not be a time limit, there is time pressures, and then that creates sort of hasty decisions. And it looks like we're going to have a title race that is going to be incredibly tight, which might have 1 point in it. So that could be the title decider, which would be really a shame, but we don't know that yet. But that's the risks of this, and that's why I kind of wanted to take it outside of the whole referees are crap, because I think football fans like us have been doing that for years, and I think there's something more to it. There's got to be.
Mm. I mean, let's talk about positives here. Let's talk about let's go to you, Steve, your former player, Raheem Sterling. It's been a long time since he's been your former player, but he is there is a history there between Raheem Sterling and Liverpool FC. I mean, everybody thought that he was pretty much packed in. That nobody understood why Pep completely abandoned him, but now it seems like he's been rejuvenated. He's back in the team. And he's scoring goals, important goals as well.
I think we've talked about this situation with Pep before on this pod. He is quite an emotive manager. He's quite a guy that goes through phases. Bernardo Silva was out of favouritism at some point last season. Whether I like Raheem Sterling or not, whether I have an issue because of the way he behaved in leaving Liverpool, you can't hide from the fact the guy's a quality footballer, and you know he's got something about him in terms of his personal makeup. He's quite determined. He's quite resilient. You know, lots of footballers would have given up on the idea of playing their way back into the team because it's a roster of who's who at Man City, isn't it? And the chances once you get out of form, getting back in are quite tough. He's playing well. We know he's got ability. Didn't ever have him down as a penalty taker, but there you go. He's slotted it, so that's all good. We know his strengths. We know what his strengths are. We know what his weaknesses are. He's not a clinical finisher. He's missed a lot of chances that you sit and shake your head in disbelief. But you can't deny the man's got resilience because, as you just said, we spoke recently about has he got a future at Manchester City and where could he go? I think we talked about Barcelona and other places. He's just rolled up his sleeves and got stuck in, and you have to admire that because in a 30-man squad, to lose your place and then work hard and get it back says quite a lot about you as a person. So all power to him for digging in and getting the job done.
It seems like Coach is having a bit of a mare, but it is what it is. You could at least turn your camera off, bro. No, it is, boy. You all right, Kojo?
They're messing around with my food, man.
Just wanted to make sure everything. You look like you're having a bit of a domestic there. Just making.
It was a big domestic, but we're good. We're good.
All right, you're good. Someone who also had a bit of a mare was Raul Jimenez. Let's go there, Darren.
It was petulance. It was funny, but it was petulance. I think he'll look back at that and be like, it's so stupid. It's such a stupid thing to do, especially when that moment in time, the game was really open. It was really a chance for Wolves to do something to get. But they've got a relatively good record at Etihad as well, so it's not as if it is beyond the realms of possibilities to take 1 or even 3 points there. So I suppose he has to pay for his negligence. That being said, I'll quickly pivot to Bruno Lage being a lot better at dealing with this Wolves team than everybody expected. He did well for Benfica, but obviously he had João Felix, and then the year he went to Atletico, it kind of crashed and burned a little. So it was a little bit up in the air as to how he was going to deal with things. But he's done really, really well. But yeah, like it's just silliness, really. Raul Jimenez. There's not much really you can say about it other than that.
Very, very silly. What was not silly was the way Arsenal played against. I keep bringing it. I bring it back.
You are shameless, Kale.
How am I shameless? How?
He's saying the truth, dude. It was comprehensive.
We were great. We had a very good game.
Are you saying positive words about Arsenal?
I've been saying positive words. We need to check the podcast, bro. I've been saying nothing but positive words about Arsenal.
It's just Arteta that doesn't get so many positive words.
It's Arteta and the group chat is where we see the ire for Arsenal.
Maybe ire for a few certain Ghanaian players, but it is what it is, man.
Leave our uncle alone.
Hey, he's playing like an uncle.
Right now, boy.
He's playing like an uncle, so I can't leave him alone. But anyway, Lacazette, Odegaard, and Gabriel all on the score sheet. It was needed, Kojo, especially after 2 back-to-back defeats, one against the Manchester United side, which was there for the taking, and the second against a very, very poor Everton side that lost to Crystal Palace on the weekend.
Yeah, so it is. I'm going to be very honest here. I've said this. I'm going to say this here as well. I don't rate Ralph Hasenhüttl. I'm not trying to take anything away from Arsenal. Arsenal were as good as they were on that day. But the way Southampton have been playing for a while now, and this goes from last season as well, I've been on this guy's neck. And this is case in point for me. I just don't think he's good enough. I don't think he's going to do anything more with the Southampton side. And I think it's becoming very more evident week by week. Don't get me wrong. I understand they're not able to do a lot in the transfer market. So you get your Brojas in, Liverpool, and they're good players. Don't get me wrong. They're good young talents. I'm not trying to criticize the idea of buying these guys. I just don't think he's the guy anymore to take Southampton any further. I think they've regressed under him. I think they're starting to become a bit of a relegation threat or problem within that club as well. And look, I'm not trying to say I expected them to go to do something against Arsenal, but I expect more from a Southampton side overall this season. And I've just not been impressed by Ralph Hasenhüttl for a while. Now, when it comes to Arsenal, you did need to bounce back. 2 losses, but you got the job done. It was at home. It was a home victory. Like I said, played well. Got his goal. The Aubameyang thing, was that I'm hearing something to do about picking up his mother, so I don't know.
Bro, there's so many stories. I'm not sure. I think he got leave for a personal reason. But during that time, and he went overtime in terms of needing to come back, it looked like he got a tattoo. And I'm afraid you can't, as Arsenal captain, you can't do that. You cannot do that. That is unacceptable. I think he should be stripped of the captaincy, to be honest.
Okay.
You know what?
This is twice now. He's been pushed for a disciplinary.
Yeah, it's twice now. Yeah.
In terms of those intangibles that Arthur talks about, in terms of certain things have to be patterned, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. That's the only way you can enforce a decent culture throughout the squad, is if you have certain behavioural non-negotiables, and your captain should not be the one who's leading the breaches for that sort of stuff. So for me, he's got my full backing. Like, it matters, but he's got my full backing on the way he's handled that. I want to go back to Michael's point about Southampton. I'm not going to defend Ralph Hasenhüttl that much, but this is a Southampton team that had to get Willy Caballero as emergency goalkeeper. I think
I think, to his point, it wasn't based on this current result. It's based on a few results over 2 previous years, not just this year, over the recent years. I mean, you can always get the results where you're crying on the pitch after a victory against Liverpool, but it's the other results that need to be improved.
Understandably, that's why I said I don't want to defend him too much. But then you also look at the fact that that standard of player, that quality of player, is realistically the only type of quality player they can currently get. And look at that Southampton squad. I don't see many real Premier League talents. Their largest signing in a long time, Adam Armstrong, was playing for Blackburn, who weren't even. They're not really. They might get in the playoffs this year, but they weren't really close last year.
Mm.
You're taking two relative unknowns, unless you basically work or know anything about Cobham, as well as two of their other major signings. You have, I think Diallo, them certainly before that came from the bottom end of the Liga. You got Salisu, who barely played any games for Vallecano. That was a punt on him. And these are people that they're bringing in. So you've got to think about the actual. The whole point of transfers is that you bring people in to raise the ceiling and the floor of your team. And if you're bringing in players from the offcuts of a youth team in the league that you're in and the lower embers of a league that isn't as good as yours, it's really difficult to really increase the floor of your team. That being said, Arsenal play really well, and every now and then they'll score a goal that you can tell they've been working on that sort of thing for ages, and that was that Lacazette goal.
Mm-hmm. That was far too easy, though.
Yeah.
If I conceded that on FIFA, I'd be very upset. I'm talking about a bloody video.
It's walking through the defense, isn't it? It's very
right through it.
I'm just watching them. What annoyed me was Saka is in a good position. Don't get me wrong, but there's time to adjust yourself. And you got left back, centre back, right back, all ball watching, unaware of anything around them. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a hustle problem. Quite frankly, defenders of this day are just shocking. So that's just another thing for another day. But it was awful defending. But the build up to the goal was lovely to watch. The one touch passing the Tomiyasu through to Saka, and then like I said, the first time finish. It's good. It's good football.
I mean, let's go back to Southampton with you, Steve. Is it time for a bit of a cultural reset? Maybe I don't know, because it does look like they're not going to. They're definitely in a relegation dogfight this season. No doubt about it. But the whole idea of create and sell. I mean, Liverpool benefited from that. Multiple teams in the Premier League benefited from that system. But now they seem that their talents dried up from below, and they're not selling very high. I mean, Vestergaard went to Leicester for buttons compared to, say, a Van Dijk, for instance.
Yeah, you do wonder whether Southampton has settled on sort of being in the final third of the Premier League, and the money that comes in is enough to keep them running as an ongoing business without too many financial constraints. You do have to worry when, I know Vestergaard went for very little, but he was probably the most dominant centre-back. And then at the other end of the pitch, they let Ings go as well. They never really replaced him. And then in recent times, Højbjerg's gone to Spurs as well. So they do have a history of selling on their best players. It must be soul-destroying to be a Southampton fan, because we see our club start projects. We want to see them grow to a certain point. And, you know, in the first 12 months, certainly following the 9-0 defeat, Southampton put in a shift, and they took some scalps and won some games that their fans would have really enjoyed. Now you look at it and you think, where is that club going? Have they settled for what they've got? Can they not compete? Is the gulf? Is there now the Premier League split into 3 or 4 different divisions where finances play an even bigger part? If I was a Southampton fan at the moment, I'd be very, very frustrated. And I get Kojo's point about Ralph Hasenhüttl. We talked about this with Ollie. All managers have a ceiling of where their ability gets them to. He's maybe met his. Maybe he doesn't have the tactical nous, the scouting network in place in the club to make a difference at Southampton. They'll finish sort of 15th, 16th, take the money from the Premier League, go and buy a couple of fringe players like Darren speaks about from clubs that, you know, take a Liverpool guy again on loan, do the same next year. And they're in the top league in the world. They're 16th, 15th place in the top league in the world. And that might be for them just about good enough. It speaks of a massive lack of invention, a massive lack of ambition. But it's horses for courses. They may not be in a position to be a little bit more expansive and try and be something that they're not. The game has changed for them dramatically in the last 18 months, and that they, against sides like Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, Southampton should be a guaranteed 3 points, and 18 months ago you may not have said that completely.
I mean, a team that's probably most expensive to their own detriment is Leeds, and they lost 3-2 against the Chelsea side going for the title. Let's go to you, Kojo. Jorginho. Oh, you got your hand up, Darren. What do you want to say, bro?
I just wanted to say before we go in on Leeds, because the loss was their fault. Bielsa has managed to do an incredible job to have these lot away from the relegation zone when literally they've not had the first team bench for this whole season. They've had major injuries to basically all of their best players, barring Rafinha. They've had to pay, and Jack Harrison, who's just come back from COVID. And then you've basically played Dan James up front, and you've got a bunch of people that can't buy a drink in America because they're too young on the bench. And they're still managing to squeak out the results here and there. And that is why, if I was him, I would be pulling my hair out, because those were two of the most dumb penalties I have ever seen given. There was no need for the Rafinha challenge, and the click challenge was even worse because Rudiger's back to goal.
Yeah.
He's not going to do. He's going to pass the ball back towards the midfield because that's the only thing he can do. He's not Henry. He's not going to flick up, spin, and volley into the top corner. I don't know what Click was doing, and he's cost the team a fantastic point away. And realistically, that would have been like much more than a net positive. I will say this though: Meslier's positioning for Mount's goal was shocking. If you rewatch the goal, he's when the ball bounces back into play for Chelsea, he's not on the ball at all, and he runs back into position as Mount's already kicked it in. So there's a few individual mistakes that are really holding Leeds back. I mean, you can't, with the system that Bielsa plays, with the man-to-man and the intensely high pressing and the ridiculous training sessions, the injuries are kind of something that comes with him. But if you're gonna go Bielsa, you have to understand that you have to cut out the individual mistakes as much as possible, because you're going to need your whole squad around you.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, especially with your Bielsa defense. I know you love your what's the term? Not bougie. What's the word? I forgot the word now. You like your
Are you
managers.
gonna call me a football? Are you gonna call me a football hipster? Because I will absolutely not like that.
That's exactly what you are. You
Listen,
like your hipster managers.
We all know who. Well, I'm not being funny. We all know who Marcelo Bielsa is. If we didn't know who Marcelo Bielsa is, we shouldn't really have a football podcast. So
fair play. But on Bielsa, where's his plan B, bruv?
Well,
this is.
Sorry, go on. No. Defend your boy. No. You want to do it? Go for it.
Why do we do this? Why do we praise managers that stick to their philosophies through thick and thin, and then when a team that is basically overperforming to be where they are currently, it goes to a bad patch, we suddenly expect them to rip up everything that they've built their team around to get a couple of points.
To rip up everything.
Any sense?
Have an alternative. That's what he's asking. Don't change the whole game, but just be like, all right, cool. If this is not working,
but he has though, because he doesn't.
Just sit back for 15 minutes. 15.
Yeah, if your team, if your team is missing your best holding midfielder, you've not got your best defenders fit.
Okay.
Then how are you going to effectively sit back?
Well, there's a perfect reason to be more pragmatic for all things you said.
You haven't got anybody, so sit back.
So you don't overcommit. If you go away from home to Chelsea and score 2 goals, then kudos to you. But to lose like that by being so open and like you already mentioned, mistakes. I think part of the issue, as I was listening to a Leeds player speak the other day, he speaks to them in training through an interpreter. he doesn't speak English, not just to the press, but to the players on the training ground as well. The player actually said this. Now, there's a time when context is everything, and you want to scream at someone, and you want them to get what you're trying to say by the tone in your voice, the inflection you use, the animation, the emotion in you. He can't have all that. That can't be there when he's trying to get a message across to somebody, and he's got a little guy stood next to him translating what he's trying to say. The context is lost. Leeds have got a fight on their hands now, and it would be interesting to see how well they're doing. I know they've got injuries. I know they've lost key players. I know, and that's hard when you've got a small squad anyway. But that's when you work on your resilience instead of doing the gung-ho football that Leeds have been doing since they arrived back in the Premier League. It's to be admired, the lack of respect for other people's stature, and it doesn't matter if it's Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, or anybody. They'll do what they'll do. And at times last season, Man City away, for instance, getting 3 points with 10 men, it can work. But by and large, in the Premier League, the first thing you've got to do is make yourself difficult to beat. And they're really not difficult to beat at the moment.
Can I ask, if your team is not built up to be able to do that? Because I think sitting back is a particular skill that we don't give teams that are really good at it credit for. We don't give Burnley the credit that they deserve for it. We don't give Simeone's Atletico the credit, and I hate saying that. They know.
I'm still fuming at the fact that you say we don't give Burnley enough credit. But anyway, I'll let you.
No, for that particular skill of making yourselves incredibly hard to score against. You need a very particular type of team, and to be able to do that. I don't see Leeds set up in a way where they could be like, right, nobody's getting an inch for the first 30 minutes, and then we'll go and see if we can nick a goal before the first half ends.
Then that makes them very football tactically naive. It makes them very easy to play against. Their press at times is nothing short of running a man down, and the sideways pass, and that press is finished, gone, peeled off. Pressing's about setting traps at different times at different parts of the pitch. I don't see that with Leeds. I just see people who want to press the man who's got the ball, and then there's a work ethic there. Don't get me wrong, and you have to admire that in these intense training sessions they go through. But sometimes the hardest thing to learn to do in football is to mark space, and that's to mark the space that your opposition want to play in. These are fit footballers who are supposed to be intelligent and well drilled. It's a case of go to zonal marking if you need to. Make sure you've got cover in all of those zones at all of the times you don't have the ball. And if you're going to have a pressing system, it needs to work, because the whole idea of you get pressing teams and you get what Liverpool are doing at the moment, which is insane. You know, you look at Jordan Henderson winning the ball in the 87th minute with as much enthusiasm as he did in the first minute. When that guy's got the ball, the way that Liverpool press sequentially in different areas, there's nowhere for him to put that ball. Because every time he looks up, all of his options are being shut down systematically. Leeds just charge at you and try and squeeze you off the ball. It doesn't look to me like the coherent press. It's almost a man-for-man press, and you mentioned man-for-man before. And good football teams like Chelsea. Thiago Silva is press resistant, for instance. Virgil van Dijk is press resistant, for instance. Leeds' press against those teams doesn't work at all. So you've got to have a little bit more in your locker than just, right, he's got the ball going shut down so he can only pass sideways. When he passes sideways, you charge at him and then he's got to pass sideways again, and we might nick it. You've got to set traps, and they don't set traps. They just apply pressure.
Fair play. Let's talk about Chelsea for now. I mean, we kind of just spoke about Leeds for that session, but Chelsea, it's hard to say that they're struggling right now, considering that they are currently sitting third. They're still very much in the title race. Don't get me twisted, but they're not scoring many goals. They're lacking creativity. Lukaku has goals that have completely dried up. They're winning currently now, Coach Joe.
Yeah.
Is it going to come? And I'd say they were very lucky against Leeds as well. Is it going to come to a point where it's just going to fall flat on its face?
Well, this is what I was asking the question a couple of weeks ago about: is it sustainable for them to have their top goal scorers being defenders and midfielders? Firstly, because you need your Werners, you need your Ziyechs. Someone in the comments asked us if we rate Ziyech. I think he's a good player. I don't know if I rate him highly, but I think he's a good footballer. But you know, I think Lukaku not scoring in number one is a big issue. I said that I don't trust him in big games, but he's not doing it in the smaller games either. More worryingly enough, when he came back to full fitness, he wasn't thrown into the team straight away. I don't know if that's a case of just trying to rest him, ease him back in, or that's the fact that Tuchel's looking at him and saying, I feel like we had a bit more, fluidity or a little more dangerous going forward without the obvious target man in Lukaku in number 9. So that could be that's another issue. But the thing is, I think people are looking for things to pick out in terms of, how they just getting by games, but they're winning these games. And that's the most important thing. If they're winning these games, if they find ways to come out of these games with W's, that's an issue in itself. If they're playing bad and getting wins, that's an issue for everyone else that's trying to stop them. If they get into a groove and they start playing well and they continue to win, then that's an even bigger issue than before. So that is impressive. And, Steve mentioned Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva's been excellent. He doesn't look his age when it comes to defending in terms of typical sort of like regressing as you get older. He's still looking at a top-class defender. Rudiger is in the best form of his career, I think, so far. Christensen's looked decent as well for them. And then you've got Reece James, who's been very good this season. Aspilicueta, ever dependable. Chilwell's been good. Now, the only issue they have in that defense is Marcos Alonso, as per usual. And that's where the big problem is. But they found a way to, sort of cover for him here and there with Rudiger, or, when Kante's fit, it'll be a Kante, or someone who can win the ball but also dribble it out very well in Mateo Kovacic. So, they've got options and they've got reasons to still feel confident that they can maintain a title challenge. And I think they will. I just think there's going to be a time in the season where it gets to what Southampton would call squeaky bum time, and you're looking for your man, namely one of your main goal scorers, or supposed to be main goal scorers, to be hitting the back of the net. And if Lukaku is struggling to score goals in not only big games but also small games, that is a huge issue. So I don't know how sustainable that is for them, but they're still winning games, and I think that's what that matters for them. And as long as they keep facing lazy defenses like Leeds, who give away stupid penalties like the way they do, they won't have an issue winning games.
I mean, to your point though, I don't know. I say since the beginning of the season, Steve, we've been saying this about Chelsea, that they've not been playing well, but once it starts to click into gear, then they're going to be frightening. But we still haven't seen that. We still haven't seen what this team under Tuchel is capable of doing, even though this might be what this team is capable of doing.
Well, I said a few weeks ago that bringing in Lukaku made them a little bit more one-dimensional than perhaps they'd like, and it did, because they tried to play to his strengths. There's a conversation about Lukaku. We are 2 weeks away from the new year, and for me, Lukaku's been a £97 million flop. And there's not enough said about this. At the end of the day, they thought they were buying one of the best number 9s in world football, and for all intents and purposes, he'd shown that form for Belgium and for Inter. Now, whether it's a problem in how Chelsea are trying to play around him or play to him, he's been a flop. And that conversation isn't happening often enough for me. In terms of Kojo's point, they lost Chilwell, who was a major creative force for them. He did really well prior to his injury. Reece James is qualities up there in the top right backs in Europe, never mind in the Premier League. They will still win games of football. They've got movement, which is difficult to play against. I actually think they're harder to play against without Lukaku, because if you can put one in front and one behind Lukaku, you can almost take him out of the game. And if you look at, say, Liverpool or City that play with a designated number 6, all he's got to do is stand in the line of fire, if you like, and stop Lukaku being a feature. But they are, like Kojo says, they are still winning games of football. I don't know if they are going to click. I don't know if this is what Chelsea are. I don't know if suddenly they're going to turn up one day and give us a real Rolls-Royce performance. I don't know if they've got that in them, because there's so many different variables within Chelsea that have to work. They're certainly missing Kante. When he's back, that will add a different dynamic. They've got Liverpool in a couple of weeks' time, and if results don't go their way and Liverpool beat them, they could find themselves 4 or 5 points behind Liverpool, maybe even further behind City. That's when we'll find out how good Tuchel's Chelsea are, because both Liverpool and City are used to being front runners, and both of them have got over the line, and that will make a massive difference, because it is about know-how. We'll find out a lot about Chelsea in the coming weeks, and whether they are genuinely going to be there on the last day of the season in terms of challenging for the title. There's no reason to suspect they won't be, but they're going to go through some awkward fixtures. And as I say, £97 million for a number 9 that for me is a flop.
Darren, flop?
it's really hard to argue against that. Unfortunately, I feel like Lukaku has it's never basically since he's reached the quote unquote big time, since the Man United move, really the higher echelons of English football, it just doesn't seem to mesh with him really well. I don't know whether that's because when he is playing in England, he is set up in a completely different way as to when he's playing in Inter. When he's playing in Inter, the ball was often in front of him, and he was supposed to playing in the two, who did a lot more of the linking up with the midfield. So Lautaro Martinez would always drop in a little bit deeper, and Lukaku was able to show how good he was running at the goal as opposed to back towards the goal. Every time he's in England, I say every time, but it was definitely a feature of his time in Everton, West Brom, and especially I think at Man United. That something happens where I don't know whether he feels like he has to prove the point that he can deal with the physicality and the intensity of the league, but he almost turns himself into a target man, and he's not a target man. This is the thing. He's not a target man. He's much more. This sounds ridiculous, but he's much more similar to Chikorita Hernandez than he is a Peter Crouch in the sense of that he is a penalty box striker, but because of his physique and his sort of like his obvious strength, it always gets misconstrued into, oh well, we've got him as a reference point, and then we'll have tricky people or fast people around him, like the build up is at Chelsea with him up top with I don't know Werner or Pulisic or Callum Hudson-Odoi off him. I don't think he benefits like that. He needs a striker alongside him that does the hold up play that he can run on to chances and get in and around the box as opposed to being 30 yards away from goal all the time. I also think. Oh, go on.
Just going to make a quick point about him. He's often referenced as a flat track bully. He's not a bully. He doesn't have the confidence to be a bully. He's about 6'4". He's a unit. He's got strength. He needs a Didier Drogba mindset where he's going to go on that pitch and say, I'm going to totally destroy your centre-backs. I've got all the physical attributes. But not only that, I've got the confidence to do it, and I will bully you. I don't think Lukaku's a bully, because if he was a bully that turned up at Liverpool and bullied Virgil van Dijk, had just come back from a year-long absence to a knee injury, and actually that game turned out to be the other way. Van Dijk totally took the game to him. He needs to have someone needs to work with him on his mindset, on his confidence.
Absolutely, that is what I was going to say as well. I think something happens to him mentally when he comes here. He's had so many critics throughout he spent the majority of his career here. He's had so many critics in England, and to the point where towards the tail end of his time at Man United, he was leaking training results to prove to people that no, he isn't slow, no, his first touch isn't that bad. I want him to win. I really want him to do well, because when you see him in the red shirt for Belgium, completely different player. He even does the hold-up stuff, which isn't, I think, the better part of his game. But unfortunately, something has happened to him that happened to him when he was at Manchester United that we didn't see at Inter. I don't know whether it's because we don't watch Serie A every week and we maybe watch the highlights of Serie A, or whether it's because he does have a mental block. And also, you've got to remember, this is the Chelsea team that finally bought in on him. They've had him in and around Chelsea for a long time, since he was a kid. And they've finally gone, right, you're up, kid. So could you imagine the pressure on top of everything else? I really feel for him. I really want him to do well, but unfortunately, I feel like it's heading that way again, and I don't think it's going to work.
That's the point. You're right. They've said, right, you're the man, you're up. We've just spent £97 million on you. We believe in you. Go and show us why we spent £97 million on you. Roll up your sleeves, get stuck in, and show all the centre backs in the Premier League why we spent £97 million on you. At the moment, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, that's the thing, now, isn't it? I think obviously he's trained the team that's just won the Champions League. So when he came in, the idea was, well, they've won the Champions League, they've built a decent squad. We're looking for title challenge. You're supposed to be the man to lead it. He just won his first league title. He was the top goal scorer for Inter Milan, but as Darren pointed out very fairly, the key to that was also having a partnership with Lautaro Martinez. You don't have that at Chelsea right now. So, number one, who's going to be your main man in the partner in the link up? And number two, do you have the confidence to do that alone as a lone number 9? And if he hasn't got the confidence to do that or the ability, I mean, he's got all the ability in the world as a striker. He's strong, he's quick, he's technically gifted. But if you don't have as Steve said, the Drogba mentality of I'm going to come out here and end you, because Drogba would score sometimes 12 goals in a season, but the way he played meant you were stressed no matter how many goals he scored. So that's the issue. So if Lukaku hasn't got that, it could be a repeat of the same story from before. He could get sold for a much less price.
You asked Frank Lampard how Didier Drogba's mindset helped his career, mate.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe Lukaku should stop speaking in an American accent. That might help his confidence. You never know. You never know.
Leave him alone. Hey man, he's friends with Jay-Z now. Let him live.
Boys are Jay-Z.
Oh dear.
I think Pulisic must be looking at him sideways when he tries speaking in an accent, but it is what it is. Liverpool 1, Aston Villa 0, goal from Mohamed Salah, penalty, of course. This was the Darren?
Can we ask Steve the question that we always ask him?
I'll go on.
How did it feel having Steven Gerrard in the opposite dugout?
Spoke about this midweek. For Twitter, that's mega. That's ridiculously big. That's something we've got to talk about all day, every day. For the fans that go to the game and for the fans that invest a little bit more time thinking about these things, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, Aston Villa is no definitive rite of passage for Steven Gerrard to end up with Jurgen Klopp's job. Not at all. It's got to work. He's come in. He's had a good start. And he lost to City, but he's played well, and his team have played well for him. Let's find out how good he is when he goes for a month when things aren't going well. That's when you find out the measure of your managers. So lovely to see him back at the ground, because he's our favourite son, and it is a sort of a dream for lots of Liverpool fans for him to end up being the Liverpool manager. But Saturday was about 3 points. Saturday was about beating Aston Villa. I didn't even want them to sing about him during the game. Do it before and after, but not during the game. We are in the midst of a title challenge. We don't need side shows about Steven Gerrard coming to Anfield, with all due respect to him. I can't for 1 second question or quibble anything he ever did for Liverpool Football Club, because he's right up there. But he's Aston Villa manager, and Liverpool needed 3 points from Aston Villa on Saturday. So leave the side show for another time. Get the job done. And, they were resilient, same as Wolves were the week before. They worked really hard to keep us out. Really clumsy challenge by Mings. He caught him twice with the left and the right leg and brought him down. Before we came on air, Salah does do an extra rollover at the end, which makes it look a bit dramatic, which then brought Chris Sutton out to call him a diver, which is crazy. It was a penalty all day long. You could tell by Tyrone Mings' reaction to the whistle going. Brilliant penalty. Martinez is a superb shot stopper from penalties, and he actually thought it had gone wide. That's why he couldn't believe it, because he had it ping the post and it went in off the inside of the post. So, good penalty. A really, really good 3 points, because if Steven Gerrard, being who and what he is, can't motivate a team to come and play in his so-called backyard, then you'd question his managerial ability anyway. Aston Villa turned up and put in a resilient performance without really troubling Liverpool. The incident with Danny Ings towards the end, where there's a question mark over whether Alisson gets any of the ball. I've released a little GIF on Twitter showing Danny Ings push Matip into Alisson. So if that goes to VAR, it's a free kick to Liverpool anyway. But there's also a still going around where you can see Alisson's hands on the ball at the same time. Ings makes contact with it. But Wolves game, Aston Villa game, both teams were set up really, really well to frustrate us, and we got 6 points from those 2 games. So, those are the things that when you win titles, and we did this when we did win the title, sometimes you have to go deep into games and be resilient and keep focused, keep strong, keep doing what you're doing. knowing it only takes one chance, not give up on it. It's not Fergie time, is it? It's playing till the final whistle. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been, to be fair. And Villa was a tough task for us. They're defensively pretty strong, to be fair.
Could I ask one more question? I know you're the host, Kel, and I'll stop doing your job. Because you look like you're about to say something. I don't want to interrupt, but I really want to ask one more question.
Ask question, bro.
AFCON's coming.
Yeah.
Do you think there is enough depth in your squad to deal with that?
AFCON's going to get canned because of this variant. It's a certainty. I'd be very surprised if it goes ahead. Without it, it will be Jota, it will be Origi, and one other. That is a concern. Obviously, it's a concern. Who wouldn't miss Mane and Salah? That's a ridiculous firing line to lose. We'll need goals from elsewhere in the team, won't we? So they need to step up. I honestly couldn't give you an answer. Jota's in reasonable form at the moment, scoring goals. He's a little bit more there. We'll have Bobby back, won't we? So it'll be Bobby, Origi, and Jota. So there's lots of teams in the Premier League who take those three all day long. Jota's a goal scorer. Bobby needs to get his game going, and Origi seems a little bit revitalised. So much so that there's actual talk of him having his contract extended because. No, but you can't find the number 9 that's going to sit and play and not be smashing the manager's door down, demanding a move and causing problems within the squad. Yeah. He seems to be happy with the cameo role he's got in the squad. So whilst he's happy to do that, absolutely you keep him because he's shown he's got some ability.
His name's in history anyway with the Champions League final goal, and of course the goal against Liverpool. So he's got his legacy wrapped up there. So as long as he's getting paid and as long as he's happy, I see no problem. Darren, let's talk about your boy. Considering you want to answer all the questions, I'm asking you. Tyrone Mings, bruv.
I knew it. I
wanted you to ask that so bad.
Am I not allowed to have a bad shout every now and then?
You've had plenty bad shouts, bro.
Plenty. That's right.
I told you, just because he's tall and ugly mug, you liked him. He's dead.
Listen, left-footed centre backs at the minute are like worth all the tea in China. So maybe I just fell for that. But do you know what it is with Tyrone Mings? He's got everything you need to be a really good centre back, but he's got the bozo gene. So every couple of weeks he does something incredibly stupid. And you're just like, oh my god, why? And that's why he won't challenge Maguire. That's why Tomori is gonna nab his England squad. That's why. If Villa really want to get further, they've got the money to. They've got one of the richest owners in the league. He won't be the centre back when Villa try and push for European places because he is so clumsy and so error prone that he's not able to live out the potential he clearly has. Because I will say this: he has something. But he gets in his own way because of his ability to make ridiculous mistakes. But he's good in the air. He's got a good long pass. He's quick. He's a fairly good marker, but he's rash in the challenge. And that is so dangerous when you're often the last line of defense.
So basically, what you're saying basically is he's essentially a faster Harry Maguire.
No, I'm not saying that.
I'm still reconciling with the idea that he's not going to challenge Harry Maguire because my son, who's 11, and there's a better centre back than Harry Maguire. So I really don't.
No, because I spoke to Hussam, and
that'll be fun.
yeah. But I wanted to repeat what he said to me on Semps's podcast, Views TV official, rather, and he said that Tyrone Mings, if he wasn't left-footed, he would be a bouncer.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, like, that's hyperbolic, clearly, but I can see why he gets those shouts. But I'll be honest with you.
I'm just repeating what he said. That's all.
Hey, listen, it's a game of opinions, and he's allowed his. He might not be right.
Alex is dying, right?
Oh my god, that's rude. That's hella rude.
It's
Oh man,
ridiculous.
that's rude. Let's talk about Allison Steve. He's not the same goalkeeper that he was two years ago. He seems like he's regressed rather than the game than he's any sort of form. And he was. That's don't get me wrong. I think he's an excellent goalkeeper, but form wise,
How's he
not really.
regress?
He just seems very error prone. But because of the players that you have at your in your squad, they're not costly.
So the last match errors that cost us the last game would be City at home when he passed the ball to two City players and they scored. Check out his one-on-one saves this season. Just have a look at the stats.
Don't get me twisted. I'm not saying anything like he's a bad goalkeeper. I think he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league, but he's not the same goalkeeper that he was when he first started.
We're giving away a lot more chances at the moment than we have done. So when we got to 97 points and we didn't win the league, it was heavy metal football. It was all we'll score more than you, and for 97 points of that, it worked. Then the following season we really tightened up, and then this season, because a couple of reasons, we've lost Wijnaldum. That was the defensive side of the left-hand side of the midfield. So if you put Wijnaldum back in the Liverpool team, we don't concede the goal against Brighton, we don't concede the goal against West Ham, and we don't concede the goal against Everton. That defensive resilience has broken down a little bit on the left-hand side, and as good a player as Thiago is with the football at his feet, picking out his teammates, he's not great on the stretch, and Wijnaldum was a better defensive midfielder in terms of sitting when Robertson went past him. So we're giving away a lot more chances. I think what you're seeing, because I don't necessarily look at Alisson and think, where's his form gone? What I'm looking at is a goalkeeper that's being worked more in the Liverpool team than it might have been in the last 2 years. The thing at Villa at the weekend looks really bad, looks really, really bad. It looks really clumsy. It looks like he's got no idea what's going on. He's just been clattered by a 6'4" centre-half who's pushed into him by a Villa centre-forward. And then the first thing he's got to do is get something on the ball. And it just looks ugly, and it looks horrible, and it looks awkward. And it makes you think, wow, that's Alisson, like you have. That's not what I'm used to. I know lots of guys, lots of lads who are a bit more fortunate than me because of work reasons and can get to the game. The 40-odd thousand people, 50-odd thousand people that go and watch Liverpool are not currently worried about Alisson's form. What they are worried about is we are giving up chances at the moment, and that needs to change.
I think it's also a case of his standards are so high.
Yeah, maybe.
That him making a couple of mistakes, like, oh my god, because his standards were so high. I won't labour this point, but if you're looking at a player, a goalkeeper especially that's regressed, I would look at Kasper Schmeichel at Leicester. He is having a stinking season at the minute.
Definitely not following in his father's footsteps. No way.
No, he's not, is he?
Not even close.
Oh, mate, he's having statistically, he's having an awful season as well.
I think his time is coming to an end. To be honest with you, but you can't complain, man. He was never going to be his father. He's also won the Premier League, man. So
he's on a fantastic career.
Absolutely.
If anything, his Premier League will mean more to the history of the Premier League than the Premier Leagues that Schmeichel has won for Man United. I think that's a fact.
Bro. Treble.
No. Think about it. People will be telling their children about Leicester City and that one title, right?
I don't know, because I feel like we looked at like Blackburn a little bit without sounding disrespectful.
But the difference between Leicester and Blackburn is night and day, because Leicester can still give you a game. They are underachieving. They should be fifth, there or thereabouts. They should be where there or thereabouts of West Ham, United, and Spurs are. They're underachieving.
I think you
allow it. Blackburn aren't even in the league to say so. They've not been in the league since I was at uni. 2012, I think. 2012, 2013.
That's been a while, yeah.
So it's been a long time. It's a completely different world. I
But
think.
I don't know if we turned that.
Oh, bruv.
I don't think it was that. I mean, it was
I
a
will go as
beautiful
far to
victory.
say. I will go as far to say is that we will not see another Leicester City thing in at least the next 10 to 15 years. We
Yeah,
won't.
that's gone. I think so. Yeah, I
When
agree with that.
you really deep what they did with Wes Morgan at centre back
Now Robert Hoof. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Shinji Okazaki with Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy, he will go down as a Premier League legend, by the way.
Okazaki, no chance.
Um, I really do think Kasper Schmeichel has really, he's added a lot to the Premier League story, and that's why it's kind of sad to see him coming out so sad at the moment.
Okay.
Don't forget, what was his name? Ulloa, the big Argentinian centre forward, he used to come on and score goals for Leicester.
Oh, Leandro Ujoa. Is Ujoa?
Was he there
Yeah.
when they won the league?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. I thought you left by then. All right, cool. Cambiasso left. That's who left.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, they had Cambiasso, you know. That's ridiculous, but it is what it is.
Bro,
Manchester United 1, Norwich 0. I was this close from being able to gloat about Arsenal overtaking Manchester United once again, but a penalty from a bad, just a horrible defensive error, gifted Manchester United all 3 points. Ronaldo, of course, it's from a penalty spot. It's inevitable. It really is.
Do you know what? Surprisingly, there isn't actually that much to say about this game, other than the fact that 3 years of not being coached properly isn't going to go away overnight. That's basically it.
old habits.
There's a bigger concern, right? You went away to Norwich side that, without David De Gea being in the form he's in at the moment, would have won that game 3 or 4-1.
Yeah.
And
But
that's not being unrealistic.
We're talking about a team that did that against Watford, though. They did lose 4-1.
Norwich are not Watford. Norwich have got a little bit of new manager bounce. They've got Timu Pukki, who must be Roger Miller style, but lying about his age because he's been around forever. To the middle, he's got no pace at all. But for David De Gea, they lose that game, and they don't just lose that game; they lose it well. So you're right. The issues that United have got haven't gone away. What I would say in defence of what's going on there is take Fred out of the double pivot and playing in the opponent's half. He looks like a different footballer. He's passing between the lines and creating chances. He actually looks Brazilian, which is not something you could say for the last 2 years under Ollie. The next 2 transfer windows are absolutely ridiculously big for Manchester United in terms of getting shut at Deadwood and bringing in the right players. And it depends on whether Ralph Rangnick ends up with a job as a manager. And I do believe that's, I don't know what you think, Kojo, but I actually think that's what he's there to do.
I think, firstly, the old habits are not going to just leave their system straight away. There's a lot of players we still don't trust in this Man United team. So when they give a performance like this, it's no, you're right. See, for me, it's whether Rangnick stays as a manager or whether he fully goes into the consultancy role. Whatever it is, you need to give him the keys to decide what happens next. I've already said in January, you've brought him in for 6 months, but as far as I'm concerned, in January, if he wants to, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 million to spend, give it to him. Let him go and find someone that improves the team, get him playing his brand of football a bit more, make the team more fluid, better in the press, so you can maximize what you do going forward. I think that's very, very key. But also in the consultancy role, you have to give him the keys to find the next manager, because ideally what we want to do is have continuity. So I used to mention about Southampton back in the days when they had the it was like a mythical black box system. Where they would find a manager after the next one, but it would be a continuity. So the football's the same, the way they develop players is the same, but there's just, you just continue with the same rhythm. And I think with United, that's what needs to happen now, because after Cyrus Ferguson, we went from Cyrus Ferguson's football to David Moyes' football, David Moyes' football to Louis van Gaal's football, Van Gaal's football to Mourinho's football, and then Mourinho's football to whatever the hell we just saw for the last 3 years. So, there has to be a level of continuity. And you're right, the transfer markets are so big because Ole did do well in getting rid of some of the players that we didn't want, / the players that wanted to go. Smalling we didn't want, Lukaku wanted to go, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's still other players in the squad that we don't trust. Quite frankly, we see it every week. We're not happy with certain players, and that's the issue with United. Is United fans bitch and moan about why is this guy starting? There's always going to be unhappiness. They don't want Maguire to start. We don't want Fred to start. McTominay. There's always going to be a thing. So there has to be a moment where we now say, okay, this is the style of football we want to play. These are the profile of footballers that we need to bring in to maximize the style of play and go from there. I don't like doing comparisons to clubs, but with Liverpool, when you brought in Klopp, the team that you had when he first came into, I say 2 or 3 years later, was so much different. So much different. And he weeded out the players that were good enough, kept about 3 or 4 of them as squad players, and the rest of them were able to come in and be, key parts. And actually, I'll say squad players. Firmino became a key part of his plans. He just needed to add another 2 next to him. He got Mane, he got Salah, and they went wild. So, I just think United have a lot to do. You're going to see more games like this. The first 2 when they were pressing a lot better, it happens. We've seen that before with Man United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came on a 14-game winning run. Mourinho had Man United shine Blackchester United. Man United were doing fluid 4-5 up top with Di Maria, Rooney, Van Persie, Falcao, and then one fateful day in Leicester, they forgot themselves all over again. Van Persie started off the season under Moyes like he never left Ferguson, and then 2 weeks in a row we got smacked 3-0, one by Man City, one by Liverpool. Crazy. Wow, history repeated itself. But the point is, it's because Man United haven't had the continuity. They had a manager for 25 years, so he ran his game no matter what. So now that you're in a situation where you don't do that no more, because you were in a position where you didn't have to do that, now you're in a position where you're going to have to keep changing managers. It's going to be a thing for Man United. They need to find a way to have a system where they say, you know what, if we were to bring in Ten Hag, for example, and then Ten Hag eventually left, do we bring in, I don't know, Ruben Amorim from Sporting Lisbon, and does he play the same style of football? That kind of thing. Until United have that, that's not going to work. I feel Liverpool have that. When Klopp eventually goes, they'll use common sense and bring in someone who can easily just walk into that, not change too much, things get going, but the same idea with Liverpool, help it run. I think that's what you need to look for. So United
I agree. I think Ranieri's got to be the guy that gives Manchester United back a footballing identity, because you don't have one at the moment.
Yeah.
There's not a person in the world that can tell you what Manchester United are trying to do week in, week out. So it's interesting you make the point about Liverpool. So Klopp set his stall out to build a team that does a certain job. And Klopp said to Michael Edwards, I want Julian Brandt from the Bundesliga, and the analytical side of the club and the players, people doing player profiles said, actually, you really need to have a look at this guy, Mo Salah. And Klopp said, why do I need to do that? He said, because he does all the runs that you want, he does all the recovery that you want, he does all the pressing that you want, and he's got the industry and the work rate. And then Klopp was persuaded to have a look at Mo Salah. Well, we know what Mo Salah is now, so we're all grateful that he did. So at some point, Manchester United have got to go down the player profile in the same way that Liverpool did, to buy players to fit in your system rather than trying to create a system out of a mishmash of some incompetent midfielders, some who aren't incompetent but can't do what they're being asked to do.
I think with Man United in regards to that, I think Rangnick will do that, but I also think Rangnick has got the hardest thing that Rangnick will do will be the 2 years. It won't be this. It won't be the 6 months. It will be the 2 years, because Man United need to be dragged into modernisation, and it will be kicking and screaming, because there is this idea around Man United that is still stuck in the mid-2000s and early 90s, where they put credence of the voices of yesteryear over what's happening now. So I think, to be honest, we all know Man United want Pochettino because it can't be but it could be Pochettino or Ten Hag. They're like, basically, it's not a secret that those are the people that they really want long term.
Whoa.
So Rangnick's job is to get the team through the season and basically it not be a dumpster fire when one of those two take over. But the only way United are going to do that is if they do some serious unlearning of previous mistakes and of negligence. Because I look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's reign, and this is the hangover for it. We got players that have seriously regressed. Wan-Bissaka would not get back into the into the Palace team, even though they're playing Joe Ward at right back, who he surpassed in the first place. Martial had one good season, and now he had a season where he got 20 goals, and he scored 7 the next, which is just unacceptable.
Jimmy Bill Jeffers.
Like, it hurts me because I at a point where I really did like Martial, but you can't do that at a top club. You cannot do that. And then you've got players like McTominay, who people talk about McTominay like he's 19, he's 25. That's peak years for a midfielder.
Oh yeah, shit.
So realistically, are you the type of midfielder? If you're playing in a dual 6, you need to be good at everything. He's not good at everything. There's countless videos from Tifo or other places where they've literally said, look at him hiding from the ball where the defenders have it. That's not what you want for your centre midfielders. And these are people that play week in, week out, who don't have a lot of support from ex-players. And this is another thing that Rangnick's going to find really difficult. As he says things that shines a light on how badly run United have been, like how we said a thing a couple of days ago about how Mike Phelan basically does nothing. You will see an ex-player put a lot of pressure on Rangnick on the job he's doing. So after Rangnick said Phelan basically does nothing, a couple of days afterwards, in the Norwich result, even though we got 3 points and we would have lost it under Ollie, in my opinion, definitely. Gary Neville goes, oh, it's interesting that the high pressing isn't working.
I was waiting for this.
He sat there for 3 years, said nothing. The external voice is challenging the established order how people done. Now people want to talk.
That's where we were. That's where we were when we won our last league title, and then went all those years. You know, I've said this before. We used to say, "But we're Liverpool." But for 30 years, we were just a team trying to find our way back to the top, and very often unsuccessfully. I think the best lesson you learn is you don't have a right to say we're anybody when you've fallen that far from grace. And
Agreed,
I
completely.
see it today with someone I respect saying, "But we are Manchester United. That Champions League door should never have gone that way." That very statement, and I've said this to you before, and I don't say it to insult Manchester United fans. We are Manchester United. Is 10 years, at least 10 years out of date.
Facts,
So
absolutely.
Stop saying it and go and earn it. That's the point I'm trying to make when I'm speaking to people. We had to. I got destroyed. Some of my friends I worked with were Man United fans and Everton fans, and I got destroyed having seen Liverpool dominant, winning everything to winning odd cups here and there, and every year hoping this would be our year. What Klopp did with Liverpool was turn everything on its head. He got everybody who was employed by the club in the room and said to them, "We're going to be an unbreakable family. I don't care what anybody outside of these 4 walls has to say. You're as important as you, and you're as important as you, and we're all in this together." And I know every one of you. I know your names, whether you brush the floor, or whether you score the goals, or whether you cook the dinners and do the tea, whatever. You're all a part of my team. If you don't want to buy into that, there's the door. That's exactly where Manchester United are right now. Exactly where they are.
Yeah. The slight difference is I think Man United are opening the door, kicking and screaming to a new member of the family, and that person's job is to shake things up, and they're not going to like it. There are a couple of he's got the support of John Murtough and Darren Fletcher because they picked him, because they're probably the only two that kind of know what they're doing. But when it comes to Man United, there's a lot of people that are stuck. Like Everett said this before he kicked the ball. Like, are we gonna stop playing the Man United way and start playing the Rangnick way? Man United way never existed. It was a Fergie way, and it worked for so long. That's what it is. So we're gonna get with Man United. We're gonna get a lot of this. That's why I was like, there's not much to say other than we've got 3 years of baggage to unlearn. And that's what's going to be the
Also, got to
case.
add to that what Ferguson's United teams were really fluid, and the transition was really, really quick and very hard to play against. You wouldn't call it a systemic side, Manchester United, at all. Back then, it was off-the-cuff football. In the last 7, 8, 9 years, football has gone from being play whatever's put in front of you to all being about systems. So that's something Manchester United have got to learn as well, how to adopt a system and how to forget Ryan Giggs running down the wing and David Beckham doing what he was doing on the other side. You know, those were great days for Man United fans, and for football fans, you can only admire what Ferguson did there, but football's changed so much. You often wonder how Ferguson would have adapted to a world where systems are everything, because that's not what Man United did, was it?
Yeah. I'm not going to get into that, but I do think Man United are going to have a few more of these. I think they will have another one of these results at Brentford if it still goes ahead because there's a few COVID cases at United. But I'm under no illusions that that's going to be a horrible game because they can be direct too, they can be aggressive too, and they're going to be more aggressive, more direct than Norwich were. They've got more of a goal threat. So, if I'm honest, I'm not expecting Man United to show real glimpses of, oh, that's good, that's a nice little bit of consistent play till February at the very earliest, because I see the job as a massive job. You've got a bunch of players that don't fit the system. They're arguably the best players that don't. You've got people that are integral to the system that aren't good enough. You've got people on the peripheries of the team that realistically, if we want to be where we want to be, and it hurts me to say because I'm talking about Van der Beek, I don't see him as a strong enough number 6. I don't see him as a strong enough number 10 for where that needs to be. And we've got a lot of these players kind of halfway house type of players. And it's gonna be a really big rebuilding job. This is why I say Rangnick's biggest challenge will be the 2 years. Because it'll be Ten Hag or Pochettino's problem with playing staff. But really turning the squad upside down, getting the better players from the youth system to come through, and actually having a consistent idea is going to be nightmarish for Man United. I don't. It might not even happen.
As a rival fan, if you get Ten Hag, we will be slightly more concerned than we would be if you got Pochettino.
If anything, United need to do that so City don't when Pep leaves.
Yeah.
So
pretty much. Manchester United aren't strong enough. What a way to end it! What a perfect way to end it. In my opinion. In my opinion, that's the perfect way to end it. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching on whichever platform you choose to do. Make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. But Steve, we'll go to you first. Where can they find you, sir?
Just guesting on some shows at the moment, like this one. Always a pleasure to come on, boys. Thanks very much for having me. It's always good when I get a little invite in the inbox, mate. It makes me smile. So I like talking football with you fellas. And from a Liverpool fan's point of view, I'll be appearing on Red Men TV again on Friday, which is pretty cool. So really enjoying doing that. And listen, give these guys a follow because I can't believe how low your numbers of subs and followers are. For what you guys do and who you are, that's incredible that it's as low as that. And it's almost criminal, guys, because you do good things. And as I say, I enjoy coming on.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. The Twitter numbers are coming up there. So we're not doing too bad.
There we
Good
go.
stuff.
So certain people rippling to Gary Neville. I saw 5 followers coming straight away. I was like, yeah.
Gojo, where can they find us?
Obviously here on YouTube, Free Midfield Podcast. We're also live on Twitch right now, so that's Twitch Free Midfield. As well as Twitter, obviously, of course, that's on your audio places, your Instagram, and your TikTok. 3 in midfield. That's that.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Match Report. Good night.
See.